Good evening. This is Justin Ford in the studio for From the Frontline. Tonight we're dealing with universities, polyversities, diversities, and aversities. In the studio with me is Dr. Peter Hammond, the founder of Frontline Fellowship, who has been involved in serving persecuted Christians for over 40 years in 38 countries. Dr. Hammond, what is going on in our universities today? What used to be places of higher learning seem to have become something rather different and not as constructive and educational as they once were intended to be.
Well, indeed. I've never sent my children to any of these secular universities. We did homeschooling and Christian alternatives. But my daughter, because of her being involved in ballroom dancing, was up at University of Cape Town early 2015 when the whole Rhodes Must Fall debacle began. And there they were in one of these beautiful halls, wood paneling with these lovely oil and canvas original artworks on the walls. And my daughter said, in came these thugs suddenly, wanting to rip off the walls these beautiful oil and canvas original irreplaceable works of art, and they had a bonfire going outside on the steps of Jamison Hall. And so she physically restrained them and pushed them out the door, and she was quite shocked that none of the men, or I should say males, who were in this dancing class assisted her. And her response was, "Dad, they look like they hated me." And I said, "Daniela, they do hate you." She said, "They look like they wanted to kill me." I said, "I'm sure they do want to kill you." And she said, "They look like they were demon-possessed." And I said, "I'm sure they are." And this was the whole Rhodes Must Fall hysteria that began, which was followed by Fees Must Fall, which was followed by Science Must Fall. And there was one of these idiots saying, science must fall, and then she consulted her laptop, iPad or something that she had in front of her. I don't know if she realized that's a result of science too, and saying that we should bring witchcraft into universities, which actually they have. And, of course, many people going to universities major on things like evolutionism and situation ethics, Marxism, critical race theory, radical feminism, paganism. There's all kinds of nonsense. And now the transgender cult indoctrination and intimidation of alternative viewpoints. The thought police seem to be very busy on the average university campus, where if you've got a pro-life or pro-family Christian perspective, you're going to be in deep trouble. We've seen some bizarre things taking place at universities, right down to attacking people for pro-life posts that they've put, or in the case that we had at UCT of some black Christian woman who posted about the US attorney decision to legalize homosexual marriage, who said, "We are legalizing sin, God have mercy on us." And for that post, she got hounded out of being a very popularly elected student representative council vice president, and her office was trashed, and she was assaulted, threatened, and all kinds of pornographic, hostile things put on her Facebook page and things like this. And before you knew it, she was the one being drummed out of the university. No discipline on the people causing the chaos. So you wonder, what has this got to do with education? And it looks like it's now more about indoctrination, conforming, not a place of iron sharpening iron, a place where you have the free marketplace of ideas. But now it looks like places of promoting Marxism and paganism.
So what are the origins of universities, Dr. Hammond?
Well, the very name university testifies to its Christian origins. University comes from uni veritas, one truth. Yet today most professors don't even believe there is an objective truth that can be known. And secular humanists, therefore, I think should open up a polyversity because they believe in many gods, or a diversity, or an aversity because they don't believe in any truth. But universities, by their very name and origin, should be Christian. And the origin of universities is thoroughly Christian. All evidence confirms universities grew out of Christian missionary endeavors. The Benedictine order's first monastery was Monte Cassino in Italy, the place that got pulverized by Allied bombing in Second World War. But it was started in 528 AD and became the greatest library in Europe. Tremendous literary treasures of antiquity. And Monte Cassino is considered the godfather of all libraries. The Benedictines collected books and copied manuscripts and loaned books to other monasteries, and they required the monks to read books daily. And the libraries of the monasteries were described as the armory, similar to the armory of a castle. Therefore, from these scriptoria, the libraries developed for the universities of Europe. And although the ancient Greeks had their philosophers, Thales and Xenophales and Zeno and Pythagoras and Democritus and Socrates, Plato and Aristotle, and they also had their poet, Euripides and Aristophanes and Sophocles, and the Romans did have some gifted thinkers such as Seneca and Cicero and Pliny and Tacitus. And these were gifted men, but they developed no permanent institutions with libraries. They had no guild of scholars for students, and they certified no one. So the Greeks and the Romans tested no theories, they engaged in no research. They ignored and spurned inductive method. So it's incorrect to assume, as many have done, that universities of the 21st century are direct descendants of ancient Greek philosophers, because that's not true. The foundation for modern universities are the Christian monasteries of the Middle Ages. Now, some might point to the school of law founded by Emperor Theodosius II in 425 AD at Constantinople. And Theodosius' school of law had 31 professors who taught Latin and Greek and law and philosophy. And then there was the medical school in Salerno in Italy, founded in the 10th century, and then the University of Bolgota, founded in 1158 due to efforts of Emperor Frederick the Barbarossa. The University of Oxford, or what used to be Oxenford, it was where the oxen forded the river, and that was shortened over the years to Oxford. And that university dates back to 1096, making Oxford the oldest university in the English-speaking world, the second oldest university in continuous operation in the world. And the motto of Oxford is, "The Lord is my light." The University of Paris was launched in 1200 and the University of Cambridge in 1209. Many universities took Proverbs 1 verse 7 as their motto, and they engraved it in the entrances of the institutions. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. So all the universities from the 10th century through to the 19th century were founded as Christian institutions, and theology was always the queen of the sciences, and law and medicine were other foundational faculties. In South Africa, Stellenbosch University, the very first faculty was the theological faculty, founded by the brother of Andrew Murray, and Stellenbosch University started as an explicitly Christian university as well. Professor Alvin Smith has documented this in How Christianity Changed the World, a great book. He documents universal education, schools for both male and female, and for all classes, both upper and lower classes, is a uniquely Christian innovation. Catechetical schools, cathedral schools, episcopal schools and monasteries, medical universities, schools for the blind, schools for the deaf, Sunday schools, grade schools, secondary schools, modern colleges, universities and universal education have one thing in common. They are all products of Christianity. And Dr. James Kennedy and Jerry Newcomb, in their book, What If Jesus Had Never Been Born, documents every school you see, private or public, religious or secular, every school is a visible reminder of the religion of Jesus Christ. So is every college and university. Now, universities were not always temples of secular humanism and cesspools of moral decadence, which have now become today. There was a time when universities were the centers of biblical reformation and revival. Many of the greatest university professors were Christian reformers. This includes Professor John Wycliffe of Oxford University. He was the morning star of the Reformation. Professor Jan Hus, the rector of Prague University. And Professor Martin Luther of the University of Wittenberg. The reformer John Calvin founded the Academy of Geneva. And the English reformer William Tyndale was a graduate of both Oxford and Cambridge universities. Tyndale was the first to translate the Bible from original Greek and Hebrew into English. Some of the greatest missionaries of the 19th century came out of the university missionary movement, including C.T. Studd and the Cambridge Seven. So our universities should not be doomed to decadence. They should, by God's grace, be able to be centers of biblical reformation, but that's going to take a lot of hard work, because right now they are cesspools of moral decadence and anti-Christian prejudice, almost temples of secular humanism, you could say.
So what should the purpose of a university be?
Actually, it should be to teach students to think critically, which is the Oxford and Cambridge method, where you had people like C.S. Lewis, for example, trying to get students to think. And what university should not be is a place of indoctrination where you're taught what to think. And this idea where it's unacceptable to have views that conflict with the narrative or the politically correct propaganda of the day, that is completely antithetical to what a university should be. So university should be a place of iron sharpening iron, a free marketplace of ideas, a place of investigation and education looking at the facts. And this should be testing theories. And you should be able to be debating and discovering and questioning almost anything. A university should be about education, not indoctrination.
As so many universities have become secular, radical and intolerant of biblical Christianity. What alternatives are there for Christians seeking higher education?
This is hard, but it has become better over the years. Of course, there was a time when Christians could go to university and expect Christian professors. It wasn't that long ago you had professors like C.S. Lewis of Cambridge University. And, that's wonderful. But now it is pretty bad in South Africa. We did have, not that long ago, Potchefstroom as CHE, Christian Higher Education. And that was its name, Potchefstroom Christian Higher Education. That was the name of the university. And that was reckoned as one of the finest universities in the world. It's still not a very bad university, but you can see they are fighting against the tide and they're being eroded. So today, there are alternatives. There are online alternatives. There's some fine colleges that I know of in South Africa, one being Cedar College of Education in KwaZulu Mission in KwaZulu, and it's a teacher training college. And Cedar College receives people from as far afield as Germany, Switzerland, France, and Korea. So it's a well-respected teacher training college, and Cedar College International, well worth recommending. I know quite a few people have got their teaching degrees there, and they are related to the Northwest University, which is the ancestor now. It's followed on from Potchefstroom's Christian Higher Education. So they can issue full degrees under the Northwest University's mandate, but they are independent in a practical Christian sense with real Christian devotions. As far as the Bible college go, I strongly recommend Back to the Bible Mission, which is based near Barberton in the Eastern Transvaal in what's today called Mpumalanga. General Shai Mulder, Professor Mulder, and his wife, Dr. Elreza Mulder, are the leaders there, and what a magnificent college. It's body, mind, and spirit. They really take prayer and devotion seriously, but they've got a high academic standard as well. I have the privilege of lecturing there regularly on missions and sometimes on Islam and biblical worldview. This year I was there lecturing on African church history. But Back to the Bible Mission, outstanding in Eastern Transvaal, well worth considering. There are alternative online university options. Now, my eldest daughter, Andrea, wanted to study English literature and journalism, and her options in South Africa were pretty bad because the average English department today is pretty hostile to Christianity. In fact, in the average English department today, it's the most anti-Christian department in any university. They seem to pump every kind of radical feminism, Marxism, and paganism through what's meant to be English. The last thing they're teaching there is what Jane Austen believed, or what Charles Dickens or Milton or Shakespeare were meaning and telling. They try to reinterpret what the original writers wrote to fit some modern fad, and where will it fit into radical critical race theory or radical feminism and evolutionism, and they are teaching the very opposite of what the English authors intended. So my daughter applied for and received a full scholarship to study at Arizona Christian University, which was a fine opportunity for her, and she was their first journalism student and graduate. They started that faculty with her year, and she gave the final speech at a graduation. But Arizona Christian University was a fine faculty that Andrea really enjoyed, and that was good. I know some people who've studied through UNISA, which is, I think, the largest online university in the world. And so many of our friends at KwaZulu Mission who would not support these secular humanist cesspools of decadence have had their children study higher education through UNISA. And I believe that while it used to be a lot better, it still provides a good academic alternative for those who don't want to go through the extreme expense and abuse of being on the average university campus, which is, in fact, not only unsafe for your mind, but also for your body. Your safety is in question. So there are alternatives. Now, for the persecuted church and also for homeschoolers, we've put a lot of free educational materials online on what we call the William Carey Bible Institute. So the WC or the williamcareybi.org website has got lots of lectures, audios, videos, lecture notes, manuals from a range of excellent lecturers. We've got strong history, Muslim evangelism, Great Commission, sections, but so while it's more directly Christian, the great thing about the William Carey Bible Institute website is all the resources are completely free. We've got some of the finest authors, lecturers, professors have donated resources. And at first, William Carey Bible Institute was for the persecuted church in restricted access areas to provide things that those people couldn't obtain. But during the lockdown lunacy and the anti-Christian revolutions taking place in university campuses with critical race theory and transgenderism going berserk, we thought, well, maybe we should make it available to anyone. And so it's a freely available online William Carey Bible Institute. You can go williamcareybi.org website, and you can see on there we've got 27 different subjects and thousands of great lectures, audios, videos, articles, manuals, which are completely free for you to download, access, and use. And through assignments, through reading book reports and practical projects, especially if one can find a local mentor in your field, such as, whether it's an historian or a journalist or minister or missionary or whatever field you're trying to go into, who can help and guide you, sort of like the Oxford and Cambridge model where you have a mentor. You do your assignments and they guide you and they help evaluate and point you in the right directions, recommend resources that you might have been missing or ask questions that you need to be considering. So William Carey Bible Institute is completely free and it's online and we recommend it. There's also a Facebook page for it, William Carey Bible Institute on Facebook. But look, you can see the links on the Frontline Mission SA.org website too. But that is another alternative. If you're wanting to train as a teacher, I strongly recommend Cedar College or Cedar International, which is now based at Kwasibantu Mission, not far from Greytown and Stanger in KwaZulu-Natal. If you can be there, then it's a wonderful environment. You're in the environment of a mission that's gone through decades of revival, a phenomenally beautiful place, a safe environment to operate in and to study in. When you're surrounded by Christians who can actually challenge you and lift you up instead of dragging you down or trying to burn everything around you.
What about Wellington? That used to be a Christian centre of education.
Wellington used to be tremendous. There was the Africa Institute, which was founded by Andrew Murray and which grew out of the 1860 revival. There's the Women's College, there's teacher training college in Wellington. I think they might still have some residues of good material there. I don't know enough to recommend them, but I would hope that there's still something really good at Wellington. One needs to investigate what's around. It depends on the principal, the school governing body, what the faculty is like. But we can have some pockets of sanity in this ocean of insanity that's going on out there. It's well worth investigating, but those are some that I can recommend.
And for those who you have no choice but to go to a secular university, what resources can you advise to help them or to help such a prospective student prepare to stand firm and to be effective Christian witnesses in a hostile environment?
Well, now that is a serious question because you're going into effectively a spiritual war zone. You're going into a hostile environment and therefore you need to be well prepared, just like a soldier needs to be well prepared and well armed and equipped to go into a war zone. We should bear in mind we're going into a war zone. You can't just send your children into a hostile environment like this without preparing them. They need to know the enemy. They need to understand the issues. They need to have their own weapons. So absolute basics, I would say, would be David Noble has written the book Understanding the Times, where he has evaluated 10 major areas from biology through to theology and history, economics, and he looks at it from the biblical point of view and then from the secular humanist worldview perspective, from the Islamic perspective, from the Marxist perspective, from the New Age humanist perspective. And so Understanding the Times is an excellent textbook that can help a student going to a secular university to know how to maintain a Christian worldview in a hostile environment. There's a summary, smaller book, a paperback, that summarizes the Understanding the Times, and that's The Battle for Truth, also written by David Noble. Highly recommended. There's another book which David Noble helped write, which is called Mind Siege, which is much more accessible for the average person to understand what's going on. And Dr. James Kennedy once said, if you study Understand the Times, it'll be more beneficial than a college degree, which I think is no exaggeration at all. It's a great book. I've turned to it many a time, and it's absolutely gold. It's outstanding in education. Now, we've written other smaller books such as South Africa Renaissance or Reformation and Biblical Principles for Africa, which can also help. We've also got at Christian Liberty Books a whole series of great books helping any student trying to go to secular university to have a Christian alternative, like on biblical economics and how to keep your faith while studying at college. And there's a whole lot of excellent textbooks available. But I would say you cannot over-prepare. You're going into a battle zone, you're going into a war zone. It's a world war of worldviews. It's a clash of civilizations. You must know what you believe. You must know how to defend in argument what you believe. And you must know how to win secular humanist people to Christ. So to be able to stand and to be effective as a Christian witness in a hostile environment, you need all the training you can get. And so we launched our Biblical Worldview Summits for that very reason, to train people in going into these hostile environments, which at first the whole goal of the Biblical Worldview Summit was to prepare people for going to university, to be able to handle debates, to be able to know how to argue logically, which unfortunately there was a time that you could debate at university. Now that's very hard because they generally just shout at you and throw insults at you and keep chanting their mantras instead of engaging in debate. So universities are not the logical environment they used to be. But still, when we started our summits, we put a lot more emphasis into debating, and we have debating skills games like Just a Minute and so on. And the whole purpose of a Biblical Worldview Summit is to prepare young people knowing how to defend your faith and how to question all areas and to understand the biblical worldview of economics, crime and punishment, justice, defense, law and order, all the things from entertainment onwards, origins, creation versus evolution. We must understand these things because you go to university and they will start to attack you with all sorts of things. They attack the integrity of the scriptures, they attack creation itself, even attacking these days the very identity of genders. People get into university now for saying, people have lost their position as professor of university for saying something as simple as there's only two genders, or biologically there's only two genders, or man can't become pregnant, or something like that. And you can find yourself being accused of hate speech, intolerance, and not only have professors lost their positions at universities for stating that, but sometimes people have been fired for the fact that their wife posted something on social media that seemed critical of the gender dysphoria movement and the transgender cult. So yes, to prepare a person going to secular university, I think you want all the training you can get. I'd say Evangelism, Explosion, Way of the Master are good basic training programs. Biblical Worldview Summit is an essential orientation course and crash course to prepare you for the clash of worldviews that a person is going to get in university. And then you need books, good books. Understand the Times, Battle for Truth, Mind Siege would be just the beginning. Biblical Principles of Africa. And then Answering Skeptics, a book that I put 14 questions that of the most important attacks I've come across against Christianity and how to answer them. And these are battle-tested answers. So Answering Skeptics, those would be some very helpful things for anyone going to university. And those are available as audio MP3 box set as well as a book. But coming to the Biblical Worldview Summit would be the most helpful because while most people don't read as much, it would seem that getting first-hand presentations, videos, films, guest speakers, getting involved in debate in the preparation and the way we prepare people at Biblical Worldview Summit, many people have said since that really helped them enormously to not just survive in university but to thrive.
As education has become a crucial battlefield, as you said, of beliefs and behavior and the clash of civilizations or the world war of worldviews, how do we reclaim the campuses for Christ?
We do need some Christians to go into the campuses. Now, on the one hand, we're saying you don't want to send your soldiers who need training to a place where they're going to be beaten up and shot at while they're trying to be trained. But if you are well trained, to have some people there, so maybe some Christians can go on the campus as some speak about being a missionary student. Well, then you've got to be extremely well prepared. I wouldn't dream of sending anyone there who hasn't been well trained in evolution versus creation battles, who knows what Answers in Genesis are teaching, who've heard the Philip Stott lectures, for example, who understands Way of the Master, Evangelism, Explosion. They've got the tools to be able to evangelize. We need Bible studies and prayer fellowships start in university campuses. Now, the worm ministry started like the BAPSOC, Baptist Society, METHSOC, Methodist Society, ANGSOC, Anglican Society on University Campus. There's Campus Crusade for Christ. There's different groups that started in university campuses with the very purpose of winning people to Christ on university campuses. But that's only good for while those students are there. And so some of these, we had a very strong Frontline Fellowship Bible Study group at Stellenbosch University for years. But at a certain point, all those students graduated, moved out, and then we suddenly found ourselves without local representatives. And every single year, you've got to recruit more people. So these things are living entities, and there have been some fine individuals I know who've gone to university campus and have made a great impact. They opened up a Bible study and a prayer fellowship in their dormitory or in their flats if they were hiring a flat, renting a flat. And then they brought in guest speakers. And it takes hard work. I've come in as a guest speaker to many university and given presentations on the persecuted church or pro-life debates, things like this. And so you get your guest speakers. We've organized for Dr. Philip Stott, creation scientist, to come to speak at different universities. And he's been very popular and people have been very grateful for that. We helped bring in a creation science research, a lecturer, Dwayne Gish, at one point. And I remember his lecture in University of Stellenbosch was from fish to gish. And tremendous turnout of people coming. So getting good guest speakers into university campuses, organizing some film showings, whether it's unplanned or some of these different great pro-life Christian films, something that's really tackling the issues of today. Organize to show one of the films of Franz Cronier or like The Raw and so on, or getting a film from the Kendrick brothers and screening this. This can make a big impact, and that's helpful. Guest speakers, Bible studies, prayer fellowships, outreaches, literature distribution. But at the end of the day, you need Christian lecturers and teachers, and that's hard because most university campuses do their best to avoid getting Christian teachers, and if they do get them, they try and intimidate them into compromise and silence. So you've got to go about it like a battle. It's a war. To infiltrate a secular university and to turn it into a Christian university is going to take a lot of hard work, a lot of prayer, a lot of action. But it can be done if we're well equipped, well trained. We get in good books and enable people to be exposed to great teaching. It can make a difference.
Yeah, so just to clarify for the listeners, you're drawing a distinction between the ordinary student, Christian student who has to be prepared through things like the Biblical Worldview Summit to face an onslaught of ideas that are going to be highly critical of their traditional viewpoint, conservative viewpoint, and versus people that are really geared up to actually fight back.
Yes, on the one side, if you're going there and your goal is just to survive, that's one thing. But if you're going there aiming to thrive and to conquer and reclaim campuses for Christ, well, now that's a whole different level of investment, of preparation, and of intensity, and that's going to demand a lot. But of course, there might be some people even called to a campus ministry where they are going to come alongside some students who are Christians in university, but actually work as a witness to campus. And they're going to build, whether it's a coffee bar, home, a place of discussion. And I know, for example, there's a group called Maranatha up in Minnesota in America, and they have seen the university as their mission field, and they have got people coming from all over the world. There's students from something like 200 different languages represented in virtually every religion, and people from all over the Middle East pouring into these university campuses in Minnesota. I don't know why Minneapolis, St. Paul has so many, but it's they've invited me there as a guest speaker and given me topics like slavery, the rest of the story, or on communism or Islam and terrorism and things like that. And I said at the beginning, what do you want me to do? And they said, we want you to be a lightning rod. We want you to rile the people up. You bring the people in. Our students are trained. And when you've finished and the question time's over, our people will be sitting amongst everyone in turn and have conversations then. You bring in the people, and then our students will evangelize them once the discussion time's over. And so they were quite effective at this. And I had several people there who came from homosexual backgrounds who had been converted, people who'd been Marxists, radical Muslims and others, feminists, and now they'd been converted to Christ. And so this Maranatha Christian Fellowship was deliberately going into university campuses and creating Christian communities, and they'd have a house. I think they'd call them fraternity houses or something, but be a Christian fraternity house, which was called Maranatha on campus, or meet the just off campus. And the people would come there, they'd have meals, they'd have services, worship, devotions, outreaches, counseling, and it would be like a home from home. Some of the students actually stayed there too. And they were treating the university as mission fields. going in and bringing troublemaking guest speakers like me to create controversy, and the controversy would draw on the students, and they used that to convert many of the students. Now, that is effective, and so that's one model I've seen, which is probably the most effective model I've seen, where they actually were winning huge amounts of students, and many of these people go on to be engineers, doctors, lecturers, professors, who now have a thorough biblical worldview, thoroughly evangelized and discipled while on university campus. So they came out with much more than a degree in whatever they were studying. They came out as real battle-hardened, tough Christians who knew the subjects and were able to lead their fellow students to Christ. Now, that's a model that we'd like to see more of around Africa as well. Now, I do know that there have been some people who've tried to start, like Africa Christian University up in Lusaka, and we've got some amazing work and progress going on in Zambia, where they are starting a Christian university right in the capital city of Lusaka, and they've had a lot of success. Well, we need more of that, much more of that.
And so just beyond students and young people, it seems that many Christians today seem oblivious to the biblical worldview, and many are actually biblically illiterate. So how can a Christian resist being conformed to this world?
Well, Romans 12 says that we must not be conformed to this world, but we must be transformed by the renewing of our minds. Now, notice that it says renewing of our minds, not removal of our minds. Some Christians seem to think they've got to have blind faith, but we don't believe in blind faith. We believe in faith in facts, and not a leap into the dark, but an intelligent step into light. Christianity is a logical faith based on historic evidence, archaeologically backed up, and manuscript research and all of that. It's so important for us to bring the academic, intellectual foundations to bear here, that people can see it's not a matter of throwing your mind away, it's a matter of having your mind renewed, refreshed, not contorted and defiled and indoctrinated, which I'm afraid a lot of universities are doing. And so how can we resist being conformed to this world? Well, the first thing is to study the Word of God. Now, we've got a Bible exam, which we give people at the Biblical Worldview Summits, and everyone must pass it before they leave and get the certificate. And some have to write it again several times, but we help them till they get it right. And it's shocking. I've found pastors, bishops, Bible college lecturers, Bible college students failing the Bible exam. And it's multiple choice. It's not that difficult. It's not that many trick questions. It's logical, it's biblical, just basic biblical history and biblical ethics. And yet so many Christians fail it. And this just shows you that the average Christian is not reading the Bible and is not being well taught. And the average youth group and pastors not doing their job in training young people in the Word of God. So we've produced some good resources like Old Testament Survey and New Testament Survey of going through every book in the Bible, making the books accessible, understandable, simple, being able to show the logical consistency and the applications of the Word of God. So I would say reading the Bible, all the Bible, going from Genesis through to Revelation, reading every book of the Bible is a very important thing every Christian should do. Every Christian should read the Bible regularly, but it shouldn't just be dipping in and reading a few of our favorite things. We should read from beginning to end whole books. And I think that's a great principle. So, for example, it's important for us to challenge people, as we do at our Biblical Worldview Summits, have a daily devotions. And so we do practice that at our camps and courses, that time is made available every day for people to have devotions, to be alone with their Bible and only with the Bible, and to let God speak to them through His Word. Then we'd encourage everyone to belong to a Bible study. And it used to be that almost everyone in church belongs to a Bible study. In Eastern Europe, the persecuted church told me, we do not count our members by how many people attend the Sunday morning service. We count our members by who attends the midweek Bible study. And I think the Bible study is the most important part of the church activity, because, yes, the preaching on Sunday is important and corporate worship is very important, but the Bible study is where you really are taught and trained, and when you get to grips with what the Word of God is teaching. And so I would encourage any church that has not given emphasis to the Bible study might need to revive it and make it a central focus again, and revive your Bible study and prayer meeting in the middle of the week. That's key. I'd encourage Christians to either join a Bible study group or start one. One of the best things I ever did was start a Bible study and prayer fellowship in the South African Infantry, where I did my training. And you can imagine going through the Bible every day, every night, for 2 years has a big impact. I might have learned more about the Bible during my 2 years military service than I did in Bible college, actually. It was very foundational. And I've met many a person who's never read the whole Bible. And our Professor of Old Testament, Dr. Fritz House at Baptist Theological College, he would regularly ask students, how many of you have read the book we've just studied this semester? Daniel, Psalms, Isaiah, whatever. And it was embarrassing how few could put up their hands. And some would say, I read the commentary. And he said, you don't read the cookbook and skip the meal. And no, the Bible. When he first asked, how many of you have read the whole Bible? This was at a college assembly, and so we had all 4 years there. And some people started raising their hands, and he said, you mean the New Testament, sir? He said, no, I mean the whole Bible. And hands went down all over the college. And the shocking thing is there was only 2 of us in the whole college who had our hands up that we'd read the whole Bible, like every book of the Bible, at least once. And that used to be pretty standard. But now I'm talking about 40 years ago at a Bible college, pastors in training couldn't say they'd read the whole Bible. I mean, that's shocking. There's no reason for that. If you read just one chapter of the Bible a day, and that's not a lot, that doesn't take a lot of time, one chapter of the Bible a day, you would go through the whole Bible in 4 years. There's 1,187 chapters in the Bible. Now, if you read 4 chapters in the Bible a day, you could go through the whole Bible in 1 year. So that's not unattainable. It's not that hard to do. If you just invested 15 minutes a day, you could read through the whole Bible in a year. So how difficult is that? So we really need to encourage Christians to get back to the Bible. And that's why the Bible College, Back to the Bible mission run by Professor Shai Mulder is so important and so foundational, because they go through every book in the Bible during their 3-year program there. I strongly recommend working your way through the Bible. And if you need help, I've set up our livingstonfellowship.co.za website, and you can get the links there to both the articles, the sermons, and the audios on our sermon audio, where I summarized every book of the Bible. I went on a project of preaching through every book in the Bible. That required summarizing the main message of each book in the Bible in one sermon. Although when it came to Psalms, that took 5 sermons, and some books like Mark, we had two sermons to summarize, but that still was quite ambitious. Unlike Martin Lloyd-Jones, who took something like 6 years to preach through the book of Romans. I went the other way, where I tried to summarize one book in one sermon, which is it's also sometimes helpful to get the broad sweep and, the big picture, go to the top of the mountain and get an overview. So I would say to get people back into the Bible is absolutely vital. Daily devotions, get into the habit of reading the Bible, carry a Bible or New Testament with you, and redeem the time, whether you're on the train or the bus, but be reading. And having a Bible with you and reading at all times helps. If you're spending a lot of time in the car, get an audio Bible. And it's amazing how much, there's some wonderful Bible, audio Bibles, some dramatized, some with music and so on, others just plainly read. But you can choose. They've got NKJV, they've got KJV. You can go through the whole Bible regularly. If you're just traveling, commuting by road, and whether you're using an MP3 audio with an earpiece in a train, or whether you've got a CD or MP3 player in your car, you can go through the whole Bible in a year of just driving back and forth to work, whatever commuting you're doing.
You've been conducting the Biblical Worldview seminars and summits for over 33 years. Where have you conducted them, and what sort of reactions and responses have you experienced from participants?
Yes, actually, we've been conducting these seminars all over the world. I've had the privilege of running Biblical Worldview Summits in the Congo. In fact, we had our biggest attendance ever was in the Congo. We had over 3,000 people at our Lubumbashi Biblical Worldview Summit back in 2006. But I've conducted Biblical Worldview seminars in Zambia, Namibia, Malawi, Nigeria, Romania, Congo, Sudan, Zimbabwe, and in the USA, and produced the Biblical Worldview Manual that's gone through 8 revisions, and we've been able to distribute it in 5 different continents. So that's been tremendous. We've also had a lot of people coming to attend our Biblical Worldview Summits from all over the world, and people have come from as far afield as Russia and Romania. They've come from New Zealand and from Namibia, from Germany and Ghana. People have come from Britain and Botswana, from Zimbabwe and Zambia, from Kenya, Sudan. So people have come from all over the world for these Biblical Worldview Summits, and they've been a wonderful privilege and opportunity. And we've had some people respond, say, this is the best course I've ever attended, and this is life-changing, and you know how enjoyable it is, or you have stretched my mind and my muscles. So we praise God for people who've been able to come and benefit. But the enthusiasm of some people, especially when you get people who come back again and again. We've had multiple people who've come, and we even had people come from Pakistan, Switzerland, Uganda, all over the world. They've come to our courses, and as far afield as Canada and New Zealand. So the Biblical Worldview Summits are attractive, they're interesting, they're battle-tested, they're proven with a track record in the field, with people being transformed to be more bold and biblical. I remember one person saying years later that he was terrified of the outreach we had planned as part of the Biblical Worldview Seminar. We were going to do an outreach one afternoon, and he hid in the bathrooms to avoid being taken with us on the vehicles off to the outreach. And years later, he came at a church service and came to the front and apologized in front of the congregation that he had deceived me and hidden in the bathrooms to avoid going on outreach, and how the Lord had brought him to conviction later that was wrong. And he said when he went on the outreaches, how much easier it became later, and came back to our course, and he said this is the best thing that ever happened to him, was learning how to go on the streets and do outreaches. So we had some people who had some irrational fear of the outreaches, and then later said actually it was the highlight of the whole course was going on outreach.
How can listeners learn more about the upcoming Biblical Worldview Summit?
Well, if they go onto the www.frontlinemissionsa.org website, frontlinemissionsa.org, SA short for South Africa. So frontlinemissionsa.org website, you go on there and you click on events, and it'll give you a poster on Biblical Worldview Summit. And if you click on that, you go to the page on it, and you'll see there's details about it, the dates, which is from the 4th to the 11th of January in 2024. And then there's some videos that have been made of previous summits. There's response forms, quotes from what different people have said who've attended the course, of the evaluation forms afterwards. There's some summaries of some of the programs and evaluations of what happened and what some of the programs involved. You can also go onto the Frontline Fellowship sermon audio and get some of our lectures on Biblical Worldview Summits and listen and see what you think. If you go on the frontlinemissionsa.org Vimeo page or video page, you'll be able to go down to the bottom of the page, and it's got Biblical Worldview Summits, and it'll have the different years, and you can go and watch some of the videos of some presentations. Some years have featured the guest speaker, creation scientist, Dr. Philip Stott, and then one gets obviously a real scientific emphasis. Some years we've emphasized more way of the master or evangelism explosion. Sometimes it's been more apologetics and emphasizing more of the answers to skeptics. So each year's got its own flavor and unique specialities and strengths. And so we've had some people do multiple courses. In fact, my daughters have done virtually every course, and my one daughter, Daniela, has been attending every course since she was 11. And the fact that she comes back every year and sees it as a highlight, because there's very little repetition. Except when it comes to PT, okay. Press-ups are repetition. But there's, but the lectures and presentations, even the same speaker, is different each year. And of course, they've often got different subjects or a different angle on that subject. And there's amazing how much you can learn about creation science from someone like Philip Stott, for example. So we've had a variety of guest speakers over the years, and that always helps. There's different films. We always try to have a film that is new on the circuit. And there's some really good old classic films as well. We try to integrate Way of the Master as well, to introduce people into 10 Commandments-based, conscience-directed evangelism. How the law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The law is the schoolmaster that leads us to Christ, that we can be justified by faith. So you can learn about the Biblical Worldview Summit on the Frontline Mission website. But we've also on Facebook got a Biblical Worldview Summit Facebook page, where you'll see some pictures of previous outreaches and some links to some of the audios and videos done. And you can, of course, email us, mission@frontline.org.za, and get more details about. You can get an application form off the website by the event and seek to join. But if you can get to Cape Town by the 4th of January 2024, you'll be able to take part, and it'll be body, mind, and spirit.
And what should any prospective participant expect, and how can they best prepare for the course?
Well, the one thing I'd say is the more physically fit you are, the more you're going to enjoy it. So while we have PT every day, you don't want to be out of breath and struggling. So if you can start off by doing some long walks and do some jogging and some press-ups and sit-ups in the morning. Get yourself well prepared that way. Get some comfortable shoes that you've walked in. You don't want some brand new boots or something that can give you blisters when you go on your first hike. So having some good running shoes, have some physical exercise that you've used before, and so that you're not totally unprepared. I would also recommend that one studies books in the Bible, and perhaps Proverbs is a good beginning for BWS. You get a lot of wisdom in the book of Proverbs. So getting yourself into the frame of mind of wanting to learn and to receive the good lectures, does no harm to go onto our website, watch some of the presentations from BWS, prepare your mind. If you want to excel in the Bible exam that's coming up, then of course it does help that you're reading more of the Bible yourself, so you're not caught when it comes to the Bible exam that you find yourself struggling. And believe it or not, we've had some people who've gotten 100% at their first attempt. That is rare, but those people did some serious studying. And some, as a matter of honor, came wanting to get 100% the first time, and they did it. And then you compare that with some other people who were Bible college lecturers who failed a Bible exam. So that's pretty sad.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Hammond, for a very interesting topic of universities and what they've turned into, Polyversities, and the solutions such as a Biblical Worldview Summit. In closing, I'd like to read from Colossians chapter 2, verse 8. Beware lest anyone cheat you through philosophy and empty deceit, according to the tradition of men, according to the basic principles of the world, and not according to Christ. Thank you very much for joining us From the Frontline. God bless and good night.